Welcome back to the dojo, everybody. This is TruTalks with TruMotion, where a couple of guys talk about how to make the world a better place and hopefully make your day a little bit better in the process. My name is Stephen. Mark's not in today, but I have a couple of special guests. I have a couple of guests that I've known for pretty much my entire life, and they've been really good influences on me. I have in the studio with me Tim and Mary Heine. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you. Now, I was kind of taken by a surprise when I got the names of the guests because I've always referred to them as Mom and Dad. So learning their names was a little bit of a shock to me. But I'm really happy that that they agreed to join my humble show, our humble show, and they've been really good influences on myself. So I'm excited to get to grill them with some questions today and get to learn a little bit about them and where they're at and what they're doing and what their opinions on life are at this stage in their life. So it's exciting. So first, let me kick it over to you, Dad. Introduce yourself to our audience and tell us a bit about what you do, where you're from, what you like to do. It's all yours.
Well, greetings, everyone. My name is Tim Heine, as was introduced. And it's my first podcast, so I might be rambling here a bit. What I like to do, so I am employed by one of the major cell carriers as one of the engineering geeks. I decide where to build new cell sites to improve your cell phone coverage and thus your speeds for your data and your app usage. What I like to do, I enjoy puttering around our property, fixing things, making things better, tearing down what I built a year or two ago because it wasn't as good as what I thought it would be, and rebuilding it or redoing it. Or that our goats figured out how to get out of that pasture, and so I have to fix that. What I like to do, I like to do a lot of things, so it's hard to narrow down specifically, but I like working with my hands in all manner of things. I actually enjoy hard manual labor. I'm currently trying to remove a tree stump out of the front yard by various means.
By manual labor.
Manual labor, yes. And sadly, all my boys, or half my boys, have moved away, and the other half have full-time jobs and don't seem willing or able to help me with that. I've lost my labor force. Labor force. That's enough about me for now. I'll turn it over to my lovely wife.
Oh, well, thank you. And thanks, TruMotion, for having us join you today. And my name's Mary, and I am newly retired from an art director position with a vitamin company here in Utah. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, and I met Tim while attending college, and we kind of had some commonalities. And so we kicked it off, and 5 years later? 30?
No, it hasn't been that long. Are you kidding me? It just seems like yesterday.
So newly retired, so I'm really getting into some fun things like making goat's milk soap because we have so much goat's milk, and lotions and salves and, just processing food that comes in through the back door.
Wow.
Well, I forgot one of the things that I do is I beta test these goat milk soaps and lotions. I'm the beta tester.
Wow, fantastic. Well, that's awesome. I mean, both of you have just the interest to create, to make things. And obviously you've brought four young men into the world, and that's kind of exciting. So let's look at our we do have a show, and we do have a bit of a structure to the show. So first, a word from our sponsors.
In the heart of the majestic Utah wilderness, where snow-kissed landscapes meet the rugged beauty of the high desert, you'll find SHS, a trusted voice partner. With a voice as deep and rich as the roots of our Western heritage, SHS is more than a company. We're the voice your project deserves. Whether it's a commercial, narration, or anything else you need, the deep American male voice of SHS adds authenticity and warmth. Let SHS be the voice you need, echoing through the vastness of your imagination. Your project, our passion. Together, we'll resonate. Contact SHS today and let our deep American male voice elevate your message. Because in the world of sound, we're not just any voice, we're SHS, your voice partner of Utah.
Thank you, sponsors. Now we're going to move on to our top 5 list. So today's top 5 list is your top 5 things that you like to grow. So that can be things in the garden, that can be animals, that can be whatever you'd like. So I'll move it over to you, Mary.
Well, thank you, Steve. I think one of the funnest things we're growing are potatoes.
Potatoes.
It's surprising how easy potatoes are to grow in Utah. And they're really fabulous. And when you eat a fresh potato versus something that's probably been sitting on a store shelf for a while, it's a whole new experience. I also really love our green beans and other like the leafy things that Tim grows. So it's just been we've tried a bunch of different things. We also have several fruit trees that have been plentiful this season, from apples and apricots and peaches. So and pears too, Asian pears soon. So those are some of my fun. Did I get the fifth one? Oh, the fifth one.
What's your favorite? Was potatoes your favorite?
Potatoes are my favorite. Okay. But also I think when we have herbs just add so much to flavor our dishes. Like you could probably eat potatoes. I could probably eat potatoes every day, but adding a little garlic and a little oregano and those types of herbs just make it all the
You almost have
better.
wild herbs, essentially. From what I've seen, is they're just growing out there. They really need no maintenance, and you just go out and pick what you need.
I think our mint has taken over. But
Mint's a hard one to mix with potatoes. So
yeah. Goes good with lamb.
It goes good with carrots.
Oh,
yeah.
Carrots, carrots. We grow a ton of carrots.
Yes.
Oh, that's probably on your list. Okay.
It doesn't matter. We can have the same list. We have the
All
same
right.
children.
Tim, over to you.
Oh, you said, what do I like to grow? Well, I enjoyed helping my 4 sons grow.
Good answer.
And so that's 4 right there.
Oh, wow.
My 5th, no, I'm just kidding.
That was good.
I like growing, 4 favorite. Yes, potatoes are up there. Green beans are up there. I enjoy green bean. And what I enjoyed was my sons planting the green beans, because they're like, how far do we space them apart? And I would just use their finger and say, okay, right to your second knuckle of your finger. Or if it were your youngest brother, Jake, it'd be like your whole finger. And just seeing them grow and going out and almost every third day being able to harvest, have green beans to harvest. I believe last year we did over 100 pounds of green beans.
Wow.
But again, potatoes are my favorite. They are hard work to grow, but like Mary mentioned, they're just very tasty and so enjoyable. And I enjoy growing root crops like carrots, parsnips, beets, turnips. Those are very good. I enjoy raising animals that produce something. Mm-hmm. And I enjoy raising our dogs because they bring joy and just add fun to life. There's if you're ever having a bad day, go out and throw the ball to Joey, and your day will get better.
That's right.
And I believe that's 5 things.
I think so. Well, I do have 5 things as well, and not to break rank, potatoes are not my favorite thing. Mostly because whenever I dig them up, I end up just spearing them. And so I just am really bad at guessing where they are underground. And so we end up with a lot of potato parts and not whole potatoes. But I do enjoy growing tomatoes. Those are fun. The
Yep.
plants can get a little rowdy, and by rowdy I mean just everywhere. So you have to dig through the jungle of tomato plant to find these little tomatoes. But the yellow pear tomatoes that you've been growing recently are delicious. And we had a family bring us some tomatoes in the dojo, and those were delicious
Oh, those
too.
were fabulous.
Those were so good.
Mm-hmm.
So tomatoes homegrown. For anybody who doesn't like tomatoes, you probably have never had a homegrown tomato. They are a different breed. That's one. So the next one I think is going to be, I do enjoy growing beans as well. Beans are fun. You can just pick them off. But I like the fruit trees. I like the time that you've dedicated to growing multiple different varieties of fruit, and just how prolific those trees have become. That it's like, stop growing fruit. We have too much. You know.
I agree.
It becomes a curse because you have to pick them before they go bad, before everything starts to get overripe. And so the top fruits for me is going to be donut peaches, and then traditional yellow flesh peaches, and then those Asian pears. Once they get golden, they're delicious. So that's 5 for me. A couple runners up, and there's going to be squash. I really like seeing squash.
Yeah.
Especially, you need to catch it before it gets huge. And
the zucchinis.
The summer squash.
Zucchinis.
The Utah weed.
The Utah weed, known as zucchini, it will grow, and you have to catch it before the squash itself gets too big, and then otherwise it becomes like you have to slice it up like a watermelon. So
you can always then fry it and have fried squash, which is really
that's
You
amazing.
know, we forgot to mention our winter squash.
Winter squash.
Yes, and do you know why it's called winter squash?
I don't know
good.
why
You
it's
eat it in
called.
the winter.
Because it will last through the entire winter. So it's named winter squash.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you can leave it out there, or do you pick it and leave
No,
it?
you pick it,
You
put
pick
it in
it
your
in
cellar,
Cold storage.
cold storage, and your summer squash, like your spaghetti squash, your butternut, your acorn, those will last.
I see. Wow. That's
That's how
interesting.
they got their name.
Yeah, I've noticed with vegetables and fruits in general, like the outer membrane, the peel, essentially, the skin, is so vital to the health of the flesh. Like as soon as we had those squashes out, I think last year, that were just in the garage for some time, and as soon as one of the bugs or something got through that flesh, the squash itself would just go bad really fast. And that's true for all vegetables, I'm pretty assuming.
Yeah.
That once they have that perfect outer flesh, that outer membrane, that peel, then as soon as something gets through it, then the rest of it goes bad really fast. But little fun facts for you from the gardeners that are my parents. It's awesome. Now we're moving on to the next section. The next section of our show, longtime listeners will know, it's called Ask the Senseis. However, I'm rebranding it today to Ask the Parents. So, and these should be a mix of questions about what we like to do, what we have to do, and just maybe ideas on outlooks on life. So we have 3 questions submitted by me, and question number 1, we kind of explored this a little bit. Could you explain the difference between gardeners, homesteaders, and preppers? Do you think it's important for people to consider adopting one of these lifestyles, and why? Who would like to go first?
I'll defer to my dear wife on that.
Well, there is a difference,
Okay.
and there's quite a bit of overlap.
That's right.
But I would almost put gardeners and homesteaders together. The preppers are pretty much people who are preparing for an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the difference there. And I think everyone should be a prepper, especially here in Utah. Like, you should definitely have extra water and food and an extra pair of tennis shoes or walking shoes in your car. Just, you never know. So that preppers are preparing for emergencies, whereas homesteaders will take that one step further, And instead of having water in your car, they'll try to have a water source. Instead of, having canned foods, they'll be growing foods, much like gardeners. So they just take it one step further and they try to be more self-reliant versus, stocking up. A little bit of a difference there, but I think both. I think being a prepper is essential.
I think okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you?
So, I would just call it farming. Being a farmer.
Farmer.
Because, growing up on a farm, we did all of that. And it was just, we didn't label it as a prepper or a gardener or a homesteader. It was just you were a farmer. And that's what you had to do in order to live and make it from season to season. Because as a farmer, you plant your seed, you work really hard to make sure it grows and then produces the crop in the fall, and that's when your livelihood came in. So you had to prepare for the whole year with your being able to live on your fall harvest. So I would just call it farming.
Interesting.
Being a farmer.
I saw a hand raised. What was that?
Well, I was just going to add to what Dad said, and that is that, like, being a farmer and being a homesteader, pretty much the same, but homesteading is actually, it comes from 1862 when we had the Homestead Act. And that's where Abraham Lincoln, pairing it along with the Continental Railroad expansion, tried to encourage people to move west.
Oh, wow.
And it was basically you'll get these large, expansive pieces of land, and if you can live on it for 5 years, that land is yours. So, and the Homestead Act was around until the early 1930s. So it was really essential to the growth of our country. And but homesteading, the reason it's such a big movement right now is because people see it as a way to reduce their eco footprint, eat cleaner food, and again, of course, be more self-reliant. So,
And people farm on their apartments now.
They do.
Wow. Yeah, I've seen a lot of those things, those hydroponic beds and whatnot that you can just fit above your fridge or whatever. But go back to the history. What got you into the history of homesteading and everything surrounding that? How did that become an interest to you?
Well, I think being self-reliant has always been an interest.
Okay.
I'm a member of Toastmasters.
Okay.
And as one of your final projects in Toastmasters is that you have to give a 20-minute speech. And so I chose homesteading, and I did quite a bit of research on it, and it just dovetails into the way I want to live my life.
Okay.
Now that I'm retired, I just want to learn more about gardening. And
You married a farmer, so
I married a
obviously,
farmer. Farmer
Married that farm boy.
obviously you were
engineer.
encouraged to be like, oh, we have to hold our crops, Well, that's excellent. That's so exciting. For me, I think it's important for people to consider homesteading and prepping, especially if you're in an area like the Salt Lake Valley where you could have an earthquake that could knock out everything at any time. It's important for us to think ahead on that matter and prepare ahead on that matter. It's also, I've been one of the beneficiaries of the soaps and the bread, and I smell like toast coming in and my mouth is clean. So
Hey,
I really enjoy it, and I think it's great, and I need to find my place to contribute and start homesteading. I've actually been commissioned for Mom's soaps to 3D print some stamps for them for the little soap bars, and I find great joy in being able to 3D print something that I can hear being hit upstairs and just wham 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 as it imprints.
I think that's part of Mom's anger management.
Yeah.
When she's upset, she's stamping the soap.
She's got the big hammer out. We have to
but
steer
you
clear.
think about it. You put a
4-pound
stamp
sledge.
on your soap, and you don't have to wrap it with paper necessarily.
Right. It's easy.
Just a way of saving.
It's really cool.
It's so cool. Well, that concludes the first question, and I think that was awesome. I think we had quite a bit of discussion about that, and I encourage the people listening to see what they can do about becoming a homesteader. And if you are a prepper, put that in the comments below or email us at trutalktuesdays@gmail.com. Moving on to question number 2. Having raised 4 sons into young men, what are some key lessons that you've learned from that? And how do you think those family dynamics have influenced your interests in the aforementioned keeping the land, farming, and self-sufficient lifestyles like homesteading?
Well, you want me to take this on first?
Go ahead.
I just feel like we raised 4 boys and
You had to feed them somehow.
we had to feed them some. And we noticed that, garden season and pulling in all that food, it was really good for them.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that you and Jake are able to drink goat's milk.
Mhm.
I mean, it's just fabulous, and we can make goat's cheese and we can make yogurt and things like that. So the raising 4 boys, well, Tim can talk to quite a bit of like building their character and their strength and their physical agility and things like that. I would just say that one thing I realized early on, they're all different. And they all have different interests in life, but we tried to instill in them a healthy lifestyle and a desire to give back to their communities whenever possible. And so I think people do not realize how wonderful children are and how much they teach you, especially when they're, when we're older. It's just like watching you guys go out into the world and do great things. That's so satisfying and it brings such happiness.
Wow.
My turn? All right.
Yes, your turn.
Well, I was really glad to have 4 helpers out on the property.
There we go.
I believe it was the term slave labor at
Yeah.
one point.
I believe my first job was for the slave driver, a.k.a. my father.
Yeah. One of my goals specifically, but I believe our goals for parenting was more of a general of raising our children to contribute to society and not be a drain or on society. And that involved, to me, teaching them hard work, to work hard, do manual work, be willing to do that, because you never know when you might find yourself in a position of needing to support your family, and there may not be a job available in your chosen career, but if you're willing to work and do a good job, whether it's digging a ditch or doing landscape work, you can always find work. And if you're willing to do that, and secondly, to not complain. Yes, we all complain, but we really have it good in this country. And having traveled outside the U.S., you can see how blessed we are in this land, and to be thankful for what you have. And I guess finally, in raising our kids to, like Mary mentioned, identify that, first realize they're different, and then identify what their likes are, their strengths are. And I'll give an example. This one of your brothers, number 3, I was able to save from the dumpster some nice plywood type wood in large sheets, and he kept bugging me for probably several months. Can I have one of those? Can I have one of those? And I asked him, what do you want to do? He told me he wanted to build a boat for our irrigation canal, and I said, okay. So I gave him one, and he drew out each part that he wanted me to cut out. I cut it out, and at age 8, I cut out all the parts, and he dry fit them together into a boat. No glue, no nails. He dry fit them, and we only had to make 2 additional cuts after the initial cutout. And I realized then that he thought in 3D. and that he had a really good
Spatial.
but really good ability to work with his hands and build things. And then I started to notice that because you're really good with Legos, at building Legos and that. And then I noticed, your 8-year-old brother is also pretty good at Legos. Granted, he had a different approach to it, but you both built some amazing stuff with Legos. And after that, it's like, what can I do as a parent to encourage and facilitate that? It just seemed like natural ability. And even today, like he was home a couple weeks ago, I'm like, hey, can you help me finish the trim on the bathroom? And in 10 minutes, he had the trim done. He had everything done. And it's like, well, at least around the door. And it's like, wow, it would have taken me 2 hours to do that. So that's all I have.
That's all you have? Wow.
I could go on and on, but
Yeah, the stories are endless. But
we don't have.
That's why I brought you on the show. So you could tell all your stories. Just let the mic run. All right. Well, as being one of those 4 sons that you've raised into young men, I think that you both have really influenced me greatly to, like you said, contribute and make an influence, and also take care of the land. I think that's a principle that we've been well brought up in, is being a good steward to the land and taking care of things in it, such as picking up trash. I find myself picking up trash when I'm walking, or just like running other trash out to the dumpster. I see something on the ground, I pick it up, I run it out there. So I have to commend both of you for your fine efforts in bringing up 4 men in the ways of taking care of things. So I'm grateful for that. Question number 3. Now this is the fun one. You've always encouraged your children to be active and try different activities. What was your initial reaction when I started practicing martial arts? And from your perspective, is learning self-defense important in today's world? Mom, go ahead.
I was really excited when you went into martial arts. I think it's a great way to stay fit and strong and in command of your structure and your muscles and the way you move. But one thing I watched over the years is that it's more than just physical control. It's a mental control as well. So I think it's a great fit for you, and probably for everyone. Being able to defend, or what was your question again?
Is learning self-defense important?
Self-defense. Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, we do, like, I think Tim, you mentioned, we live in unpredictable times, and I think everybody should be able to defend themselves. That's just like, to me,
or have the confidence to know that they are in control of themselves, and if something happens, they can They can
I mean, use wisdom,
Obviously,
right?
Wisdom first.
But always be able to have a certain mindset that you can either help yourself or help others. Defend yourself or defend others.
Absolutely.
Or whatever is needed. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Dad, what was your reaction?
My reaction was, oh no, I'm going to get my butt kicked in a year or so.
That hasn't happened.
Yes, I know. But I thought it was good, because I've always, as you mentioned, encouraged you boys to be active, get outside, run around, play, learn to play sports or participate in sports. And I know that for you played
Baseball.
Baseball.
minor league.
Minor league.
You played Little League baseball, and were good at it. And then there wasn't really any activity. And then when you got into it, it's like, oh, this is really neat. So I've watched you grow and mature, and I was impressed that you took the, I don't know what the right word is, but you would go and fight each other with the grappling class. Is that what it's called? Sparring, yeah. I thought that was really interesting and good. And then playing into, yes, I think it's important to learn to defend yourself, and have, as you mentioned, have that confidence to defend yourself, or to at least identify situations to go, this isn't a good situation. I'm going to find a way to escape.
Yep. Extricate
Not
yourself.
necessarily fight your way out of it, but
Right.
identify the situation before it becomes a necessary, I got to fight my way out of this, just to leave the area and not have an altercation.
Do they call that street smarts?
It could be.
Sort of.
And just like you mentioned, having the confidence, knowing that, yes, if I needed to, I could, but it's better to not.
Right.
Yes.
And to leave. And some would say, "Oh, you're being a coward." It's like, no, you're being smart.
Mm-hmm.
You're being smart because, anyway.
Wow. I will have to also agree. Being in the martial arts profession, I think it's important in today's world, not just for me to be able to teach you, but for you to have the self-confidence and the intelligence that you can handle yourself in a situation, and that you're wise enough to recognize when something might, as you said, Dad, recognize when something might go awry and extricate yourself from there if you need it, and take the people that you love with you, so you are able to keep everybody around you safe. So yeah, that's I thought it was fun, because growing up playing baseball and then jumping over to something like martial arts, it's a very, very big shift, but a lot of the principles, especially the coaching principles, are the same. Now that I'm in what you'd call a coach position, a sensei position, I have to make sure that I use those same principles that I was raised with and taught with and practice. And you don't know how many times I tell people to practice, and I just go back every time. It's like me throwing the ball in the yard. It's practice, everything, every rep matters. So if it's a good rep, you get better. And if it's a bad rep, it's not something that you get better with. But
Yep.
Either way, we're going to move on to the next section of the show. This has been Ask the Parents. All right, the next section of the show is our hypothetical fight scene. So, our hypothetical fight scene is we take one character or two characters from different genres, locations, or movies, or stories, and we put them in 3 rounds of combat. 1 round in each of their home turf, and then 1 round in a no powers, no holds barred cage match, the octagon. So today's hypothetical fight scene is between James Bond and Ethan Hunt from Mission Impossible. So, round 1, we've got a sort of a espionage spy. Both of them are kind of espionage spies. A License to Kill versus this message will destruct in 10 seconds. So, round 1, we've got it in let's say MI6. We have James Bond versus Ethan Hunt in MI6, a fight.
Okay.
So, think about it, and then who do you have for round 1?
So, question.
Yep.
Is it just
They get all their abilities, their powers, their gear.
their gear
Yep.
and everything?
Which James Bond?
That's you get to choose.
And which Ethan Hunt? The 1970s Mission
Tom
Impossible
Cruise.
show, or
Totally
Tom
I
Cruise?
think it was the Tom Cruise one, but you can do either. You get to choose.
Yeah, that would make a difference.
Yeah, well, in the 70s Mission Impossible, there was less physical fighting and more
Mental.
the
Stealth.
mind games of using the available technology back then
Wow. Mm-hmm.
versus the current Mission Impossible, where it's a combination of both.
Yep.
But it seems to have a lot more of the physical fighting than the 1970s show. I think I would go with James Bond just because he was trained to be a license to kill, whereas Ethan Hunt is more of espionage spy trying to not kill somebody, but to figure out a
Motives.
plot of some sort,
Mm-hmm.
and is able to use physical and is trained to use physical fighting, but not as much as James Bond.
Okay. All right. What's your verdict?
I think Ethan Hunt, and I don't have a reason. I just
Other than Tom Cruise is cute. Cuter than whatever James Bond character you want to put in
no,
there.
not necessarily. Sean Connery was pretty cute.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying that Ethan Hunt will take round 1-1, split verdict with the guests here. Being MI6, I think James Bond's going to take this one. He has access to Q's laboratory, all the different gadgets. I think if a fight breaks out, it may not be a clean one, but he will probably take round 1.
Okay.
Round 2 is now they're on an airplane, or
Oh.
they're doing some sort of high octane side of a skyscraper or in an airplane, and they have a fight. So now there's a lot more physicality, variability. So
Yes.
round 2, what do you got? Maybe they're parachuting. Who knows?
Totally Ethan Hunt then. I'll give you James Bond on round 1, but when it comes to, like, if you saw the last Mission Impossible
I did.
and that train is going sideways and they're having to hang on, yeah.
So
All day long, Ethan Hunt on this one.
okay,
I'm going James Bond all day long.
Oh.
All night long. So,
okay.
I mean, he's survived a lot of different close quarters combat fights in airplanes and other places. Can't remember all the James Bond movies, but
It's a lot has happened.
in
All right. Well, now we go down to the final match. No powers, no equipment, just in the boxing ring, in the cage, a fight. Who do you think will win?
Ethan Hunt.
Okay.
Yeah.
James Bond.
Okay. There we go. I see. I've picked these really
You're the
well.
tiebreaker on everything.
I'm gonna go with. In mine, James Bond took round 1. Ethan Hunt took round 2, and I think I might be tied in round 3. I don't know who's going to be better. I think James Bond has the killing potential, but he also isn't as fast as Ethan Hunt. So in a cage, you both want to have strength and speed, and strength and speed sort of counter each other. If speed can outwit and outspeed strength, then speed's going to win. But if strength can get the hit on speed, speed ends up slowing down. So that's a tough call for me. So I think we're going to leave juries out on that one. But it looks like I've got really, really good ideas of the favorite characters for my parents. So this was a good little test.
I was going to say that would be a very interesting movie.
An interesting movie, yeah. I agree. Mission Impossible, 007. Who takes it out?
Mission Impossible versus James Bond.
Yeah, I think that would be a good movie. All my Hollywood elites listening to this. All right, the next section of the show is our shout outs. So this is where you can pick someone or something important to you and give attention to it. All right, so Mom, who would you like to shout out? Or what would you like to shout out? Is there a certain thing going on?
That's a good question. There's too many to choose from, but I would probably say my parents and your grandparents on both sides, because they were the original farmers in our lives and gardeners, and pretty much taught us this type of lifestyle,
Okay.
and taught us to be self-reliant, and taught us to be, they really focused on good character and honesty and those types of things. So for sure, my
Okay.
mom and your mom.
Yes, very, very interesting question. Who to shout out, who to give credit to. I would also echo my parents, my father, and his unique way of teaching me a good, solid work ethic. Also, one of my basketball coaches who worked with my, I don't know what to say, my specific personality on the basketball team and helped me to become a better basketball player. And that, yeah, that's those two, my parents, actually my grandparents, my mom's parents, my grandfather, her dad specifically, lived with them for 3 summers and worked with him. He was superintendent of maintenance of a home for the mentally retarded in Missouri, and he taught us how to fix and build things, and that was as well as teach us good lessons. For example, yes, we had breaks, but we didn't need an hour, or we shouldn't take an hour break, because he reminded us we were getting paid by the minute, and that we should only take a 10 or 15-minute break in the Missouri heat, not an hour plus break. So that, and didn't coddle or baby us, but basically would show us how to do things and then let us try it. And if we failed, like for example, first time I wired up an electrical lighting circuit switch to the light, it worked fine, and then because he said, okay, before you fasten the light fixture to the box, turn it on and see if it works. And so it worked great, and then we attached it to the box and turned on the switch and blew the breaker. And he was like, what's going on? And then he went up to check my wiring, and he undid something and redid it, and he put it back together and worked fine, and he put the fixture to the box and blew the circuit on him, and that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
And then he figured out that that one of the wires had gotten nicked and was touching the the box and the short circuit. So so I had wired it correctly. It was just but you know, he's like, oh yeah, we need to check for this too. And also my lovely wife here, been a good influence in my life.
Oh, vice versa.
Perfect. Well, mine's easy. I'm going to shout out you two today. Thank you for coming on the show. You've been fantastic influences. Probably the best dad I've had and the best mom I've had. You know, I can't really compare, but it's wonderful to have you. So let's move to the final section. The last section of the show is the final thoughts. My challenge to you is advice you can give to young people, younger parents, maybe having already walked that path. What are some things you suggest?
Bring your kids out in the yard and show them how to work, teach them how to work, get them out away from the computer gaming, off the electronic devices that support my livelihood, but can become crutches, because there's so much to do there, but just to be physical, whether it's working, running, playing, getting into sports, getting into martial arts, just to encourage your kids to be very active. And I guess my advice to little older kids like preteens and teens, learn to work and learn to do a good job, because it's becoming, at least from my perspective, rarer and rarer these days to find that ability.
Wow.
And my advice to you is keep doing the good job that you're doing.
All right. Perfect. Final thoughts.
I would probably encourage parents to, well, I don't know if you knew this, but September is National Family Month.
It is.
I missed that.
Yes, it is. So I would encourage parents to, if I were to do things differently with you boys, I probably wouldn't have given you phones so early. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know.
I got my phone in the 8th grade.
Yeah.
And most kids today have theirs in like the 3rd grade.
Probably. But I would, so interestingly enough, national, and this is no surprise to anyone listening to this podcast, but families who eat at least one meal together have less, and that's like a sit-down meal, once a week, I mean, that's just once a week, are in better physical condition and have less mental health issues.
Oh, wow.
I mean, there's a whole bunch of research now being done on families doing things that bond them together, whether it's going for bike rides or even just watching a movie together or, playing puzzles or, like Dad said, reading. So all of these things are just so good for a child's development, for their mental health and their ability to feel trust and bonded and ready to take on the world. So I would just say, like, make it a goal to have at least one meal, sit down together, a proper meal where there are no phones at the table, and
Whoa.
have put someone in charge of a theme and give one of the kids the job of being the topics master, the conversation starter. That would be probably my challenge and my closing thoughts.
Also have the kids help prepare the meal.
Oh yeah.
Teach them how to prepare.
That's another thing we did with our children is we taught you guys how to cook. I taught you early on how to cook and how to do your own laundry and change your own bed sheets and all that kind of stuff. Just because, like, I didn't want to be doing it.
Made it easier. Yeah, I'm still waiting for those meals to be cooked for us.
Oh. Ooh.
And you still have all your fingers.
I think
me showing you how to cut up stuff.
I guess I do, yeah. All right. Well, thank you again for joining the show today. Thank you all for listening. Feel free to post your comments below if you're watching on YouTube, or email us again at TruTalkTuesdays@gmail.com with your questions and your top 5 list of what you'd like to grow. That has been the show today. I hope you all make an impact today. Make someone's day better. That's what I'm trying to do here. So thank you again. Kick it with us next week. Bye, everyone.